break for 2 days, and many of the reports that we have seen has come from Corey Davis. So I'm anxious to pick your brain as to what you've been seeing down there. It's giving me chills seeing the video from here, so I can't even imagine what it's been like for you.
Yeah, it's really been a sad experience, to be honest. Like looking at all of the devastation and loss from the people we've been interviewing. We were actually in a Holiday Inn hotel, really big hotel, maybe a couple of hundred of rooms in there, and it was older people, infants. There was a baby. Actually, one of the only injuries was a baby. Some shards of glass blew out of the window where his mom was
talking about
in.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, and she was able to turn away quickly, but the glass cut him on his leg, and they were trying to figure out how badly he was hurt. And it turns out that he's going to be okay. But it was a scary time, and that was during the storm. And during one point, people were running into the ballroom in the bottom level of the hotel.
And so is this where you were, I mean, going back to when Hurricane Michael actually hit, when it made landfall, were you in this hotel when that took place?
Yeah, we were in the hotel. It was about 10 miles inland from the beach. We were out of the flood zone, thinking we were going to be safe from the storm surge, which we were, but it ended up being more of a wind event than anything else. Parts of the building fell off. Like if you're looking out of your hotel window, those squares over like maybe a dozen rooms fell off, and the wind was gushing in. My photographer Eric Hausman and my room, our room was okay.
Wow, and really, we saw your report from the hotel room, and we actually saw another photographer who was at that hotel or near a hotel, as we're getting just an additional mic here so we can really hear you.
Oh, okay.
And it was chilling to see, but maybe can you talk about what you felt as far as what you heard and saw at that hotel when you were in the worst of the storm? What did you hear? What did you see?
Well, I can walk you through. The wind really picked up quickly. Like we definitely knew within less than half an hour that we were in the middle of a huge storm. We heard the wind racing by, and sometimes it sounded like a train.
So we're looking at some of the video here from your reports.
Yeah, photographer Eric Hausman, he shot this video. He was wedged between two huge trucks. One was a military-grade truck and our hotel. And this was, I think, almost during the worst of it, right outside of the Holiday Inn where we were. And you can see it was sideways rain. Those palm trees were barely hanging on. But around the hotel, there was forest, really thick green forest, and all of those trees were snapped. As soon as it was over, we could see straight through those trees. Like and this guy right here, I think he was a storm chaser, but he was out there several times in danger, no cover, out there in the middle of the storm. And this is on the side of the hotel, the Holiday Inn hotel where we were. And it just lasted for 3.5, almost 4 hours, just like this.
And what are you hearing from people on the ground there? I know that you've been, telling stories of what it's been like for the people who call this region home. But what are people saying? I'm willing to bet that they're saying that they have never seen anything like this. This is a life-changing event for them.
Yeah, it's unlike anything they've ever seen. They went through different storms, several storms over the years, but this one was record-setting, record-breaking, and a lot of people did not leave the area.
Right.
And
we're hearing somewhere, WMBB estimated that somewhere between 40 and 50% of people stayed. Does that sound about right?
No, it sounds definitely right. And from what I was seeing, from what I saw, a lot of people couldn't afford to leave. Wow. There were some bigger areas of lower income communities where this storm gave them no notice. It just formed, and all of a sudden we were looking at a Category 3, Category 4 within a couple of days. Hardly any notice, so they decided to stay. Many people stayed in mobile homes, which was unbelievable to me because just driving around town, we saw trees that sliced mobile homes in half. Some of them looked like they blew up. Just like parts of this house here, it looks like, a section of it blew out. And it was unbelievable.
We heard from one person yesterday who compared this to saying, and it might be drastic, but maybe not so, that like a nuclear bomb was dropped on this place. Is that a fair way of putting it? I mean, is it like a war zone?
Oh yeah. No, I totally agree with that. There are certain sections where the trees are like blown all in one direction, then you'll go across the street and they're blown in another direction. Some are like snapped off in the middle, which is very odd to me. Usually they're uprooted and all kind of flattened. Right. So we don't know if there was any tornado activity, but looking at some of the damage, it kind of looks like that. I'm no expert in that, but I'm sure that's going to come to light a little later, for sure.
So in the hours, and we're going to take a look here at some video of the Cajun Navy doing their thing, and they are phenomenal at being, even arriving ahead of the first responders and being so upbeat and optimistic as far as helping people out in the aftermath of the storm as soon as the storm clears the area. And you rode around with the Cajun Navy, and they and you got to really see exactly how they operate. What can you tell us?
They're extremely nice guys, a large crew. They showed up before this, like Tuesday night before the storm. And then a tree trimming company also showed up from Louisiana as well. So we went with these guys. They had this this is actually a view from their military vehicle that they bought. And this is what they do. They go around to storm hit areas and try to rescue people. During this moment, though, we were in the mode of giving people rides. The storm had just hit.
Right.
People were trying to get out of shelters because one shelter, the roof partially blew off. So they were trying to get out, and they were walking long distances. There was a family, a couple and 2 small boys, and they were going to walk 14 miles to the beach because everybody heard that the beach had power, had cell service, which it did. And we picked them up. It was a bumpy ride, but they were so grateful for the ride. Like, it changed everything for them. 14 miles with 2 young boys, that was a lot.
Wow. So, and when you're talking to all of these people who, again, whose lives have been changed forever by this hurricane, by this historic storm, what are some of the things you're hearing? Are they optimistic that they're going to be able to rebuild? Are they just so distraught over what they're seeing? It's got to be a complex range of emotions.
Yeah, they're trying to process everything. Because right now, a lot of people are in the mode of help your neighbor. That's what they're trying to do. There's one street we went down, and the trees were just down like dominoes down the street.
We had made that analogy that's what it had looked like.
Yeah.
That some like a power line would fall into a tree that fell into another power line that fell into a house, and then it was like a domino effect.
Yeah.
And also another thing that we're hearing too is that with so many rooftops being blown off, we're seeing rooftops fall on top of rooftops on top of rooftops.
Yeah.
So we're seeing just a staggering amount of debris all over the place in this video. And for you being there on the ground, I can't even imagine what it's like to just see, maybe be at a gas station and see something being blown off from a school, or being at a church and seeing something blown off from a nearby small business.
Yeah.
It's got to be unreal to the eye.
Yeah, and Eric Hausman and I, we were walking around these neighborhoods that you all are seeing right now, and it was so hot out there. It was incredibly hot, so these people don't have power. They're not going to have power for a long time. That's what Senator Bill...
The grid is obliterated.
Oh, yeah. There's no repairing the grid. It's rebuilding the grid.
Right, starting from scratch, so to speak. And what are people saying that they need the most right now? What's in demand down there?
Well, right now they need a place where they can find air conditioning. That's one of the biggest things.
It's hot.
Yeah, and they need water. This came up on people so quickly, and a lot of those mobile home parks where we were, they didn't have time, they didn't have the finances to get what they need before the storm. So we've been telling them there's a huge mobile command center set up by the Panama City Mall. It's growing by the minute. FEMA's out there. There's one nearby with law enforcement. They're setting up. Fire and rescue are setting up. So we've been sending people there, and from there, FEMA could help them figure out what's next. It's just going to be a long process for sure.
Wow. So if you're just joining us here, whether you're watching on television or whether or not you're watching on your mobile device, I'm News Channel 8's JV Buno in Tampa, Florida, with Corey Davis, who is with us here in Tampa, but has spent the last 2.5-3 days or so on the ground there on the Florida Panhandle. And we're actually on the air in Dothan for WDHN. So to everybody in Dothan, we're here with you. We're trying to give you some information out there and we know that their newscast, WDHN's newscast, is going to be starting, I believe, within the next half hour or so, or actually even sooner than that. So we're going to be wrapping up with Corey here a little bit. But Corey, as far as what you're taking out of this experience now that you're back here in Tampa and you're looking back at some of the video that's been shot and some of the stories you've been telling, what's going to leave you with the most lasting impression?
The biggest thing is I went 2.5 days without running water, drinking water, without electricity, but these people are going to have to go without that for possibly a month or even more. Senator Bill Nelson in Florida here was telling people that they're going to be in the dark for a while, and to really be prepared for that. And How do you prepare for it though? If you're used to having cell phone communication, which is mostly out at the moment, it's slowly coming back, but the major carriers were down for a long time. And usually in storms, there's at least 2 big carriers who stay on.
Right.
But this was
We've
total
heard
darkness.
about some carriers trying to, initiate emergency procedures to
Yeah.
get to launch cell sites out there that could help out. And we've heard some rumors that, for example, that T-Mobile was actually one of the better carriers.
They were
and
working.
Right, and that some
Yeah.
other carriers they just didn't have, their infrastructure was knocked out. So communication is so key, right?
Yeah, it's so key, and you take it for granted thinking, okay, you have your cell phones, your electronics at your fingertips, but within that 3.5 hours where Michael swept over the area, it was gone.
Right.
And
there was no talking to the here in the newsroom.
Yeah.
And we had to get you a satellite phone. Did that ever happen?
Well, we didn't get the
again?
satellite phone, but we were borrowing people's phones who someone had Straight Talk, so somehow Straight Talk was working.
Interesting. Yeah.
T-Mobile was working, so it was
certain cell towers working, others not.
Yeah.
Depending on the carrier, it was hit or miss, right?
Yeah. I did see Verizon trucks showing up late last night, so that was a good sign because a lot of people in that area seem to have Verizon. AT&T was slowly coming back online, I noticed, and so was Sprint off and on. But people are still in the dark big time. The problem is they're not going to be able to charge their devices. There's no power. So they're going to have to go to those mobile command centers and try to figure out how it's going to happen.
I mean, you're on a finite amount of power on a cell phone.
Yeah.
Those mobile batteries, I'm sure, come in handy because you want your phone to be powered up for when you do regain cell service if you don't have cell service. And I just know that communication was one of the issues. Another issue that we have been hearing about is just the roads being impassable.
Yeah.
That so many roads have power lines down on them, or trees, or piles of debris.
Yeah.
And what were you seeing but maybe before you left? How much of a priority was it to clear the roadways?
Oh, it was a big priority. Going into town when we were leaving, all these truck after truck, tree trimming trucks were leading into town. Those trucks, electric trucks, all of them leading into town, getting there as quickly as they could to try to get those trees out of the way. That's the biggest thing. Get the trees out of the way, then they can start rebuilding the electric infrastructure.
And lastly, in covering these stories, we're gonna have to wrap with you here in Corey in just a second. But what do you want people to know out there about your experiences, and now that you're back in Tampa, what you took out of being down there, and what do you want people to know?
The biggest thing is the people down there along the Panhandle, they definitely need help. I know the state has set up a way to donate as well, and also to just be patient if you can't get in contact with your loved ones because they're going to need time to get back on their feet as well. But one of the biggest thing I did realize is that the people down there where we were in Panama City, they are strong people. They were very positive through the heat, no power, no cell service, and a lot of respect to them for that.
Corey Davis with WFLA News Channel 8 is back here. We're going to toss now. I want to thank Corey for being with us. You go get some rest, Corey. I think you deserve it. I believe it was Megan Myers. Okay, we're going to toss now to Megan Myers. And for those of you on WDHN, we are just a few minutes away from getting back to your news team. The 5 o'clock news will be coming on here in Dothan in just a short while, but let's take a look now at this report.